You know, I just got a second camera for my birthday, and I used to film everything one camera, which is weird for the guests because they don't know if they should look at me or if they should look at the camera. Yeah. So I'm back to the dancing game. I'll just tell you, you can go ahead and look at me.
Yeah, I never, when people ask me what I'm interviewing,
yeah,
they're like, do I look at the camera? And I'm like, no, just look at me. So
yeah, I feel like it makes a better conversation. This does kind of help with the Instagram clips because it's like so face on, but yeah. So, welcome back to the show, Respectfully Inspired. Today I'm here with Jack Sheridan. He is a content creator, I guess, an entrepreneur, college student, life thriver. How would you introduce yourself?
Life thriver, man. I guess I'm just a guy who got introduced into content creation and started my content creation journey because I went through a lot of personal self-growth. And I wanted to use content creation as a way to document that and hopefully inspire others based off of the growth I was experiencing. And I've just kind of kept like changing what I was making, and it's morphed with me as I've grown. And yeah, I don't know, I just make videos, man.
Yeah. I feel that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, you did something where you had 100 conversations with strangers. I was one of those strangers. So that is why I even know you and why we're sitting down and doing this podcast. But what did you learn overall from that experience?
Sure, yeah. So I've done multiple challenges with having intentional conversations with strangers. Last year was the first time I did it in 2023. And I just wanted to have, originally it was supposed to be 365 strangers.
For every day?
For every day of the year. And I was going to vlog every day of the year, short form.
Yeah.
And I ended up dialing that back because I realized I would not have a life the entire year. And so I dialed it back to 100 connections. So last year I just did 100 strangers, and it was just classified as, in some place that I'm at consistently, I'd have to make a stranger into somebody who I can call by name. And so the biggest thing that I learned out of that was pretty much what I'd already learned. I just kind of wanted to showcase it with a metric, but pretty much we're all a lot more similar than we are different. And most people are very open to being chatted up if you approach it right. Yeah, and then I wanted to niche down a bit. Yeah. I started doing the 100 conversations with 100 people in the creator industry as a means to learn more about the creator industry, find out what people are doing. I wasn't just talking to creators, it was also people who might work in marketing or that might work as like people who work with creators.
Did you learn anything about like types of questions, if certain stuff invoked better responses? I always find that how are you is a bad question, but I actually don't like to say it's a bad question because there's nothing bad about the question, but our culture has made the automatic response good. So you go, how are you? Someone goes, good. And even if they're not good or they could give a better answer, it's just generally, it's literally become, how are you has become a way to just acknowledge someone without being rude and move on. So I generally try to avoid that question. I'm wondering if in your 100 conversations, did you learn anything like that or just in general?
Yeah. My biggest takeaway from these 100 conversations was different than the first one because I was approaching it from, I wanted to learn more about the creator industry as a way to break into the creator industry and hopefully maybe network a bit to potentially find future clients. That was like the inspiration. And then Jack Ryan, who's been on the podcast, he told me, he's like, why don't you make a series out of it and just approach it from like your genuine curiosity instead. And so with every conversation, biggest thing I found was no matter who you were talking to, if you, like I never did any research on anybody. It was just, okay, I'm talking to this person, I know what they do, and I'll find out more during the conversation. And if you approach any conversation right off the bat from a little bit more excitement than maybe somebody would expect, and they're a stranger, and let's just say it's a networking call, then most of the time it doesn't feel that way to them, and it doesn't feel that way to you. For me, I was always just genuinely curious about like, what are you doing? Like, what have you done in the creator industry? What's been your journey? What are your goals? What are your dreams? It's my favorite question to ask somebody is, what is your dream? Which we've talked about, yours.
What is your dream?
My dream? Well, that's changed since, my dream. See, I'm on a podcast now, and I'm not good at answering the questions. I'm better at asking the questions.
Does the dream have to be a job?
No, it doesn't have to be a job. I'd say my dream still, my overall dream that is very consistent is to just make cool stuff with cool people and have fun.
And make cool stuff with cool people and have fun.
Yeah, that can be videos, be projects, be businesses. Yeah.
My dream, it used to be a lot more numerical. I wanted to have 1 million subscribers, which I still want to have 1 million subscribers. It's cool, but I used to want to be able to like buy my friends and family really expensive cars or whatever. Very much YouTube dreams or being on stage dreams. And now I think my dreams are more so things I already have. Quality relationships, the ability to film podcasts. Dude, it's really hard because I look forward a lot to like, oh, what will it be like when I have a bigger audience? What will it be like when I make more money? But I know there's been so many times where I've gone to the next stage of my life. Like, for example, I was in high school, played lacrosse in high school, and I so badly wanted to get to college. And then when I got in college, I was like, dude, I would do anything to go back to a high school lacrosse practice. And when I was in college, I wanted so bad to leave and go to drop out and go all in on YouTube. And then I dropped out and went all in on YouTube. And I was like, dude, I would do anything to go back to my college dorm room and just be with my friends again. And now I guess I'm starting to notice this pattern where I'm always looking forward to something in the future. And it's not that that thing is bad or it doesn't live up to my expectations, but it's just like I feel like literally every stage of life is the good old days. And so now I do have dreams and I have aspirations, and I think that this podcast will go to 1 million subscribers and I'll get to interview some of my heroes, and that will be really cool. But I'm not even like in a rush, and I'm not even expecting it or hoping. Like I used to sit in the mirror and try to like manifest and be like, I will have 1 million subscribers by this day on this time. And now I'm just like, dude, I love where I'm at, and that will be great if that comes, but I don't even care that much.
Yeah, well, that's also as a lot of people in the creator camp you're talking about, is when you set a certain metric goal or like the goal in mind in the future, then all of them say the same thing. Is once you get there, it's like, now what?
Yeah, now what?
Now what? So I think the having mindfulness to just stay present and enjoy where you're at in the current chapter is very wise, and that's something I'm trying to work on as well. So
I call that destination happiness, where I'll be happy when. See, but a lot of people don't say that phrase. I'll be happy when. A lot of people do when they're kind of depressed or they struggle with mental health. They'll be like, oh, I'd be happy if I didn't have so much homework, or I'll be happy if I met a boyfriend or a girlfriend. But then a lot of people move past that stage, or they don't use that phrase, but they still imply that phrase. They're like, oh, I hate my job. But so they're implying that they'd be happy if they weren't in their job. But chances are they probably wouldn't be. They probably just hate their next job, which is interesting.
It's pretty pervasive in lots of different areas, even outside of jobs. Just like I call it nexting.
What is it? Nexting?
Yeah. I see it in I think it's pretty popular right now in the dating world, in particular our generation. I would say, oh, there's always somebody next. Who's the next person? They're probably a little bit better than the current person. I think that's pretty common in I forget who coined that term. I listened to someone who was talking about like the same aspect, and they said nexting, but it's pretty prevalent in like dating apps, I would say, because you get like, oh, I can always just keep swiping.
Have you ever used a dating app?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Oh, what's your experience?
I like the first time I used them was right after getting out of a relationship.
Oh no.
Yeah, and it was also like 2021. Yeah. So COVID times still. So I was already very like isolated, and so it just it sent me down a lot more of a negative path than I should have gone. But I just, my self-esteem down. I was like, oh, this is terrible.
I hear the same story from
everyone. Yeah, it's for girls, it's a lot of out-of-pocket
comments
and like like endless matching. And then for guys, unless you're like really conventionally attractive, I've only like met like 1 or 2 people who were like, oh yeah, I have like a bunch of matches, and that's a guy on dating apps. But everyone else is like, yeah, it sucks. Ruins your self-esteem.
I refuse to use them.
Yeah, that's the best move.
I think that is like a good thing that I refuse to use them, but I also think part of it's bad because it's like a pride thing, because I think I'm like too good for them. I'm like, I wouldn't ever want to be the type of person who would say, oh, I met my wife on a dating app.
How do you feel about that? How would you feel if you met your wife? It's like that 100%.
So this is kind of funny. I DM a lot of people on Instagram for the podcast, and I've DM'd like a fair number of girls for the podcast. Never DMing girls in the sense of like, let's go on a date, or like, I don't think I've ever DM'd a girl and was like, you're hot or whatever. But sometimes I'll do podcasts with girls that I DM that are doing really exciting, cool things, and I'm like, dude, I hope that I wouldn't romantically fall for one of these girls, because it would hurt my ego to be like, how'd you meet? Well, I DM'd her. And I don't know if that's actually like low-key bad, because I feel like it's a pride thing.
Yeah, I see what you mean with that. I think you could shape it and be like, yeah, I invited her on my podcast.
I mean,
unintentionally.
that's what I would say.
I guess we fell in love.
I'd probably say we met on the podcast,
but did you? I think it comes down to the intentions, though. It's like, did you DM her with the intention of going on the podcast, or DM with the intention of getting her on a date?
That's true. And I honestly don't know if like you could say. I try really, really hard to see every single girl as a friend first, because I just think it's a better investment, especially with my like Christian morals. I think that I think you'll have a more successful relationship if you start off as friends. I think that it's more biblical, and I'm a Christian. I think in all ways it is better to see someone as a friend first. But even with that being said, I don't know if I could ever say like 100% of the time when there's a situation like that, like if I am like, oh, this girl's really exciting and I want to have her on my podcast, but she's also really beautiful, like it's not like I'm just acknowledging how exciting she is. I'm definitely like, well, she's pretty attractive too.
I think that's human.
It's human. It literally is human. And the reason I'm saying is because it's honest. Like that, I don't know. It's just, it is the truth. But
it would be funny if you were having a conversation with her and it got slightly flirty, and then you could capture your first flirty moment on a podcast. Yeah. I don't know if you'd do that. Probably not for the podcast. No, but it'd be funny if it went that direction.
Who knows? I have friends who have. I can't reveal because it's people we know, but people we know who own a certain company have had people attend their events and ended up dating people from the events. Yeah. And they're like, they said, it's like dipping your pen in the company ink.
Dude, it's a pipeline, man.
But I was thinking about that too. Like if I ended up dating one of my podcast guests, actually Casey, he's the founder of listener.com. He ended up dating one of his podcast guests. I don't really think there's anything malicious about that, because it's not...
Well, your intentions aren't that.
Yeah.
You can see that.
There's also like a complete difference in industry. Like if you're in an office and you're sitting next to someone and you're going to like start a relationship with someone in an office, and then every day you're going to see them at work, well, that's going to like change the dynamic of the office and the people around you. It's like if I have someone on my podcast once, maybe again in like 2 years, it's not going to really change the dynamic.
So that's changed too. It didn't used to be so taboo to meet somebody at work. That used to be that.
I think a majority of people. Oh, that was the one thing I wanted to get. I don't know why that sparked my brain. You were talking about how like 2 or 3 people who are guys who get a lot of matches on Tinder. So I just read something recently. That was a study. I can't remember the study, and I hate just referencing studies without remembering them, because then I'm like, just any one of those internet guys who just say stuff. Yeah. So whatever, you don't have to believe this. Go look it up. But basically it was saying that people are struggling the hardest they've ever struggled to get married and find partners, because women want to date someone of a higher economic status than them. Mm-hmm. Yet women have also been like rallying for better jobs and better equal pay. And so now women are starting to get like equal jobs and equal pay, but they want a mate who's doing better. So it's like all the female attention is going to like the top 1% of guys rather than how it used to be in the past where, and I'm not like for like, I don't really care what jobs women do or don't do, but like in the past, you know, women used to be a lot more commonly stay-at-home moms or
the guy would be the breadwinner.
Yeah. And so from that, and I guess it probably is rooted in pride of like wanting to have someone more successful and more successful husband. So I guess that's like a huge problem right now is that girls are only competing over the top like 1% of men, leaving a lot more men lonely and a lot more women lonely, I guess, as well, because they can't find a partner.
Yeah, so the common term that's, I guess, been coined for that I've heard is hypergamy. Yeah, so that's where, I guess, to explain it in one sentence is like women tend to like to date across and up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to speak on that, how accurate it is or anything.
Yeah.
But I would say, generally speaking, that's reinforced by a lot of things we see online.
Yeah.
For sure. You've probably seen the street interviews where usually it's done by guys and it's sort of condescending, which I don't like those types of street interviews. But they like ask a woman like, "What's your ideal guy?" And it's like, okay, he has to be this height, he has to make this much money.
Yeah.
He has to be like, he can't be overweight. And then there's like this calculator that someone made that basically calculated what percentage of guy exists in that caliber in the world.
Yeah.
And it's called the female delusion calculator. That's what.
Oh, I guess that's funny.
Yeah, but I would say that's maybe that's definitely a thing that's occurring. But if it's bad or good, I think time will tell. I think it's a net bad if it continues.
Yeah.
If not that it's one person's fault or anything, but I think it's bad because if you have less relationships forming, you have less children forming, then you're gonna have underpopulation. You're gonna have what's happening to Japan, which is just bad for the economy.
Oh yeah.
But now that's a whole rabbit hole we could totally get into.
A whole rabbit hole. I'm trying to think of how to not go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, I can pivot here.
What is I'm curious though. I do want to just comment. Does your necklace hold any significance, or is it just a showpiece?
Yeah. So it says Memento Mori for the listeners. My necklace. I always wear it. I got it about a year ago. No one bought it for me. I got it for myself because I heard of the phrase and I would have liked it after.
What does the phrase mean?
It means remember your death in Latin. And the first time I heard it was actually somebody I interviewed when I did like 2 episodes of a podcast. I shifted my YouTube channel to be a podcast for like 2 episodes.
That's funny.
Just a podcast. And then I was like, actually, I want to still do other stuff. So I shifted back. But I had my friend Canyon on, and he's a 2-time cancer survivor.
Wow.
And that's one of the phrases he said. And I looked into it and I was like, oh, this really resembles how I think of things. Because I used to be, I'd say as a kid, I was more outgoing for sure. I was a band kid. I was always doing a lot of the musical stuff in high school and stuff, and before that, and I was trying to know everybody in the program at least. Mm-hmm. But after high school, I went through like a really pretty bad period where I was just very secluded, and part of that was because of COVID. Part of that was just because of the things I was going through at the time, and I just became a version of myself I didn't like, and I would overthink I was really like a chronic social overthinker, I would say. I would want to talk to people and I wouldn't. I would probably, I don't want to say I had social anxiety because I feel like everyone diagnoses themselves with that nowadays, but I would probably say I had some level of that. I would experience that. It was not diagnosed, but situational. And then I overcame that by doing a bunch of stuff with strangers, and that made me realize, like, stop overthinking because you're going to die, and this overthinking is going to cause you to have regrets, so stop overthinking. And this is like a memento mori, you're going to die. It's a reminder of motivation almost for me.
Interesting. I had a similar high school. Actually, like my real name isn't Ozzy. I have a different name, but I don't go by that name. I don't care if my friends from high school or people know it. they call me that name. It doesn't bother me. But I think my junior or senior year, I changed my name to Ozzy. All my handles, everything. And to me, it was like an internal signifier of I'm not gonna be this person who I feel like other people have kind of led me to be. Whereas it was my fault. Like I was very depressed and anxious in high school, and the biggest problem I had is I would convince myself all my friends didn't like me. I would just like if one of them didn't text me on my birthday, I was like, oh, they don't like me. And the thing with manifesting, people always talk about manifesting is true with good thoughts, but it's also true with bad thoughts. And when you think that people don't like you long enough, and every time you hang out with them, you're questioning if they like you, then they get annoyed and they begin not to like you. So I actually like manifested people not liking me because I worried so much about people not liking me. And I remember going into college, it was like the first time I felt like, wow, I'm going to get to a restart. I'm going to go to a school and no one's going to know me. They're not going to know my past. I felt like everyone in high school knew me and knew my past. And like, even though I started to get out of it and read these books and I was ready to change, I felt like I couldn't change because everyone already saw me one way. And so one day I just changed all my handles, all my names, and people were like, we're not going to call you Ozzy. That's so weird. And now everyone calls me Ozzy. And I mean, that's like one of many things, but my life is freaking awesome. You know, I always actually credit, like I always thank God for that depression and that loneliness, because people's disliking of me made me sorry, that shadow was tripping me out.
I'm afraid I'm gonna get pooped on the podcast.
Yeah, that'll be a moment. That will not happen.
Be a moment. Clip it up.
I'm actually so grateful that God let me be depressed and alone in high school, because that aloneness, I don't think I had the confidence to start a YouTube channel. But because I was already at rock bottom, I was like, oh, people can't think of me more negatively. So I just started a YouTube channel, and that YouTube channel, I mean, I started in May 2018, so 5 years next month. And it's changed my life. It's taken me around the world. It's the reason I'm sitting here with you. And this literally was built out of loneliness. A lot of creators...
Same thing happened for me.
...say... and I want to hear about that, but there was one quote that I really heard. It was like, a lot of people don't enjoy the world they're in, so they go and make a world online. And that's kind of what we've done, and it's been so healing, honestly.
1000%. Yeah, I relate to the reason I made so much change in my life and affected others was because I was drawing from that former self when I was really lonely. I might have had like situational depression for a time period, and I hated that time period. And then when I started making a lot of change, and I would knock on people's doors, and I'd get a volleyball game going with some people, and then I'd do it again, and then I'd do more people, and then I'd do it again, and then I recorded a video and it was 100 people, and then I started doing all these things with strangers, and I realized, oh, I could be the connector for people. And every time I would do that, and somebody would come up to me afterwards for one of the like little mini events I would throw, and they'd be like, hey, thanks for knocking on my door. I'm looking to meet people, but I don't have any friends. My thought was, I wish I had someone like me last year to knock on my door. And that's kind of what sparked that was a huge motivator for me in the beginning, is I could like be that person for others.
Wow.
And then I also just got to meet people from it as well.
That's interesting. Too. You know, I had like a very halfly pure motivation, a very halfly wrong motivation. So I really wanted to help lonely kids. In high school, I would watch YouTubers, and I felt closer with YouTubers than people I knew in real life. So I was like, I knew I wanted to be a YouTuber when I was young, because I was like, the way I'm alone now and feel like these YouTubers are my friends is how I want to be for people later. But I was also maybe equally motivated by proving people wrong. So I wanted everyone, whoever bullied me, to see me have 1 million subscribers. I wanted kids in college who didn't believe me to see me with 1 million subscribers. I wanted my parents when I dropped out to see me with 1 million subscribers. And so I was very motivated by proving people wrong. And while that motivation, well, you could make an argument that all motivation is good motivation. I think that motivation is actually bad, because the motivation comes from not being enough for yourself. And you think that by the time you prove one person wrong, by the time you prove X person wrong, you're going to be satisfied. But you won't be satisfied, because if you think that way, you'll just find another person you need to please and a higher goal, and it won't fill. So that was something that I kind of had to train myself to let go of, and it's still, even to this day, I will want to prove people wrong, and I always try to just let go of that. It's not me versus them, it's me versus me, you know, as people say.
I agree. Yeah, I had some periods where I was like, it was never like X person from my past. It was just like one person who would doubt me. I'd be like, I'm gonna prove you wrong. Yeah, it actually happened one time for one of the events that I did. This was the first time I recorded doing volleyball with strangers. So I had done it 3 times. Yeah, I'd knocked on doors on like Friday nights, Thursday nights, Saturday nights, or during the day around my college campus to try and get people to play volleyball, just from purely like door-to-door sales almost, but to play a game. And every time I knocked on this one door that had these girls in it, and they'd be like, oh, I'll meet you down there. Because they could see out their window they could see the volleyball court down below. And they'll be like, oh, when you're there, I'll meet you. We'll come down. And then one day, the day of the 100 people, 100 plus people, when I knocked on every single door of the entire apartment complex, because I was like, I'm going to do this. I will have 100
that's crazy.
I was like, I'm going to have 100 people down there. We're going to play volleyball with 100 strangers, and it's going to be purely from me. I was like, I'm going to make this happen. And that was my mindset. And the only door I didn't knock on was theirs. So I was like, because I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong.
That's funny.
And then when it happened, sure enough, when the whole thing was going down, and I saw them across the way down at the volleyball court in the whole deck, I like ran over them. I was like, hey, you see this? Yeah, this was me. Like that was my moment of pride.
That's
like
funny.
My moment of like, I proved you wrong. And then we actually became friends. So
hey, that's good.
Yeah.
That's a great story. I often think about that too, because I wonder how many famous people say when you get fame, you experience fake relationships because people want to network with you because of your status or whatever. And I really don't like that. But at the same time, I think about a lot of people I ask on the podcast. And it's like, I didn't go to high school with these people. I didn't grow up with these people. But I'm asking them to come on the podcast because they've accomplished something online and because they have some sort of status. And I'm like, wow, what you did is cool. So I want you to share your story on my podcast. Now, it's not quite the same as if I grew up with that kid and I never talked to him and then I was like, yo, come on my podcast. But sometimes I'm like, if I were to get mad at someone for liking me just because of my content or my status, wouldn't I just be being a major hypocrite? Because that's like part of a lot of my good friendships are because of me seeing someone else and what they built. And I know it's not like exactly equivalent, but that's like an interesting thought I've had recently, where even in this case, like with the volleyball game, it's like, I totally understand your story, but it's like from their perspective, a random dude knocks on their door and they're like, okay, I don't even know if anyone's going to be at this volleyball game. Should we like go or not go? And they're like, they end up deciding not to go. And then later they see 100 people out there and they're like, bro, let's go. That's fun. But in our head, we're like, bro, they didn't believe in me. Like, let's go prove it wrong. Right. So it is kind of funny how we think like that.
It is funny. I think your example of getting people on the podcast and you want to almost be a medium to share their story or their experience. I think as soon as you view something as transactional is the moment it becomes transactional.
Yeah.
If you really try and treat it as not transactional, then people won't feel that.
Exactly.
I think that's what I got. That's what my biggest lesson from the 100 connections with the people in the creator industry is they're just curiosity conversations. Yeah. I'm just curious about you.
That's interesting because it's like I need a lot of my podcast guests to have built something or created something or done something for me to notice them, because I mean there's 8 billion people. It's not that I'm like sitting there and I'm like, you're better than this person, or I try very hard not to think like that, especially since I measure success by relationship, but it's like, because you've done something cool, you've now stood out and I want to talk to you. But it is interesting thinking about that, like, oh, will I just pick someone because they have followers, or will I pick them because I'm actually intrigued in building a relationship with them or what they've built or their story? There's another thing that I also want to bring up. Have you seen the TED Talk? I think it's by a guy named, I actually don't, I want to say his name was Andy. I don't know for sure, but it's called 100 Days of Rejection.
Oh, I've heard of it. Yeah. I almost did that
basically
once.
like this Asian guy who has like crippling social anxiety, and he decides every day he's going to do one thing where he's like most likely going to get a no. So he like goes to order food, and then after he finishes food, he goes to the front desk and asks for a food refill, where it's like most likely they will say no.
Mm-hmm.
And the surprising thing was that throughout the challenge, he actually got way more yeses on things that he literally designed to say no. Like asking for a food refill, they're definitely going to say no. And then he gets a yes. And then he did all these things where he believed, he set up the challenge for himself so that he would get rejected. And like half the time he didn't get rejected, which is funny. But then at the end of it, he overcame his social anxiety. And that was something I did. I did the 100 Days of Rejection. I don't know if I did it for 100 days, or I did the exact resume, but I watched that TED Talk and I went and did it. And it was one of the most life-changing things I ever did. It's very similar to Aaron.
Yeah, when people ask me like what I did to change, I was like, I literally just did exposure therapy.
Exposure therapy, exactly.
Like just daily exposure therapy. When I would, it all started from a hike. I took a hike in the morning on my first day of school, my junior year. And on hikes, it's normal to say hi to strangers and say good morning to them.
Yeah.
And I did that. And then the next day I did the same thing. And then the next day, which was like 2 days after the first time I did volleyball with strangers, I said good morning to people on the way to the gym, which is not as normal. And then I just saw that, like, okay, you either get a positive reaction or a neutral reaction. You never get a negative reaction if you're positive, smiling, you say good morning or say hi to a stranger. And then I just kept doing that. And then I get people's names. And then I just do that every day with people I don't know, like in any situation. And I was like, oh, like there's, and you just get used to it. It's maybe social rejection to a lot of people, but it's actually not. It's just people going about their day.
Have you heard of the core fears exercise?
No.
It's basically you identify a fear and then you ask yourself why, and then you keep going until you get to the ultimate fear. So it's like, I'll do this.
Right.
For example.
I think I've heard of that before. I have, yeah.
Well, it's interesting to bring it up because so many people are scared of talking to strangers. Included, I used to be scared, and if I don't do it for a while, it's a muscle. It's like the same way, if you don't hit chest for a while, your chest is going to get weaker. If you don't talk to strangers for a while, your confidence in talking to strangers is going to decrease. But it's like, all right, so many people listening to this podcast, and myself and you as well, we've had moments where we're scared to talk to strangers. It's like, okay, there's a girl. I want to talk to her. Why? I'm scared to. And then you ask yourself, why? Well, what if she doesn't like me? Okay, well, why do you care if she doesn't like you? Because I want to be liked. Well, why do you want to be liked? Because in high school, I felt like no one liked me. Why did you feel like no one liked you in high school? Because I put off a fake version of myself, and no one liked that fake version of myself. And then you go through the exercise and you're like, okay, I'm scared to talk to this girl, but in reality, what's happened is I've never been a true version of myself. I've always put out a fake version of myself. So you identify something where it's like, okay, well, my real issue is not talking to this girl. It's the fact that I haven't been my real self, because when I've been my real self, people have disapproved, and that fear is carried along into not talking to strangers. And you just go deeper and deeper until you get to the core.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, I found, I'd say that specific example applies to me. I would say my true self is like very outgoing, wanting to talk to everybody, loves to talk to strangers. That's like the thing I enjoy the most. I did it on Friday. I had my camera and my mic just because it gives an excuse for somebody to say, oh, this guy's filming content, but I'm never using the content. I just had a topic I wanted to discuss, and I just set up the podcast. I just say welcome to the podcast just because it flows off the tongue. But I just did street interviews and had 2 mics and literally just talk with strangers about a certain topic, and I'm never going to use it, but I just wanted to talk to people about this topic.
Wow.
I was like, this is fun. there's no intention behind. There's a camera there, so people might act a little different.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, I'm not using this. This is market research, which it was.
Wow. That's good. A good hack for you audience members. If you can't bring yourself to talk to someone, maybe the camera will give you.
The camera can be a crutch.
It can be both.
But it can be a facilitator as well, because people are curious. They see it and they're like, oh, what are you filming here?
Dude, well, this is such an interesting topic for me because it completely depends on where you're at.
Mm.
If you're in LA, I'm from San Diego, so I go to LA a lot, and you whip out a camera, the camera basically makes people hate you because there's so many YouTubers and cringy people in LA who make content.
That's true.
That if you have a camera, you get associated with them, and they're like, oh gosh, not another camera person. Whereas, I remember one time I went to Austin, Texas. I was there helping my friend shoot a short film, and I missed my flight home. I had nowhere to stay. So I was like, you know what? I'll make this a YouTube challenge. I went to University of Texas Austin. I was like, I'm going to find a stranger to stay with. But I was super drained because I was filming that day already. I missed my flight. I had to get to the campus, and I was not in a like social challenge mode. But I was just walking around with my camera, literally by my side. And within 10 minutes, I got stopped 3 times. What are you filming? What are you doing? And I was so like confused because, first of all, in LA, it's like people dislike you for your camera. Mm-hmm. In San Diego, it's fairly neutral. And you're not special for having a camera. Some people think it's cool, some people don't think it's cool, but it's like neutral. I was in Texas. I guess they don't have many YouTubers at this school. Everyone's stopping you. What's the camera for? What's this for? What's this for? I basically got a free place to stay just by holding
a camera.
Holding the camera.
Yeah.
And I know you at ASU
have that experience.
Probably don't have as much of that because there's all those YouTubers who film.
Yeah, it's mixed.
It's mixed.
Yeah, yeah. I know exactly what you mean in terms of the LA being like, oh, you're associated. I was associated with so many of the content creators at ASU who do like the stupid out of pocket, like, derogatory, condescending street interviews, or the prank YouTubers, or the guys who hit on women. Like, film it as like,
dude, all the guys who hit on women go to
they're
ASU.
all ASU. So I was like fighting a stereotype. So that's why I just started filming off campus, because you don't get that same reaction.
Bro, I'm telling you, you gotta go to GC. It's the kindest people I've ever met in my life. I might have told you this already, but I have a friend Lucas who has a brand deal with these shoes called Kanzuri. I'm not plugging the shoes. I don't know enough about them, but basically the shoes make you taller. So they're for guys who want to appear taller, which could be an insecurity thing. They obviously
They're capitalizing off of insecurity.
They obviously don't market it that way, but so he goes around and he gets short kings, he calls, to try on the shoes. And I've helped him film at SDSU, and we'll get 5 no's for every yes. We gotta get like 10, 20 clips. That's like 5 hours of filming. We went to GCU. I don't know if it's because it's a Christian campus or because they don't have YouTubers there or what not, but we went there. We had to get 10 clips, 10 groups of people in a row. Yes, we didn't get 1 no. I was like, bro, this is the best school ever to film at. I'm telling you, bro, it's a hack.
I gotta do that.
You'll save your money even though you gotta drive a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think the importance of talking to strangers is? What?
See how deep do I want to get into it. I think I had when I first started doing it, I had the opinion that everyone who wasn't like me, or wasn't experiencing this, should be.
Yeah.
I was like, if you're not like talking to people, you're missing out.
Yeah.
And which I think still rings true, generally speaking. But I had the mindset in the very beginning, I was like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
But then the more I talked to people, the more I realized, oh, there are some people who are introverts who are like want to stay introverts.
Yeah.
Like there's some introverts who, like, they're very particular with who they specifically give their energy to. Who do they want to talk to? Who do they want to engage with? And I was of the mindset like everyone should like be talking to people. If you're not, you're missing out on life. You're missing out on opportunities, and you should be like this. But some people aren't like that, and that's perfectly fine. That's a good thing. But I also have found a lot of people who were like me. They were more not outgoing, and they wanted to be. They wanted to be more extroverted. They wanted to make friends. They wanted to facilitate it themselves. But I think that phrase still rings true. If you're not talking to strangers, you're gonna naturally miss out on opportunities because people are the things that can bring the most spontaneous things to your life.
I mean,
and the craziest stories happen with other people, not by yourself.
it's true. There's another popular quote that says,
Happiness is only real when shared.
yeah. I heard another one, a Swedish proverb the other day, which is similar. It said, a win shared is a double win, and a loss shared is a half loss. Saying like when something good happens to you and you're with someone else, it's twice as good. And when something bad happens to you and you're with someone else, it's half as bad.
That's, wow, I love that.
Yeah, that's good.
I love that. That's really good. That's so true. Because you can have somebody lift you up.
Yeah, it was funny. So my friend owns a real estate video company. They go and film $1 million properties. Super successful. They only started a year and a half ago. And he was talking about how when they used to cold call real estate agents to try to come film with them or film their properties, and when they did it alone, like they would cold call the real estate agent, they said it was like brutal. But what they started to do is they would get on a Zoom call and they would go like round robin, like one person calls and then the next person calls, and then so when they got rejected, everyone would be like giggling and stuff, and they would be like, it made it so much less worse. And then when they got like, someone was like, oh, you want the grand package? And everyone on the Zoom goes like, let's go. And so it's just like, it's really awesome. I remember Creator Camp, Chris Duncan shared a story with me when they first got Anne-Marie, who's like a bigger time YouTuber. She said 13 minutes into her vlog that she was going to go to the first ever Creator Camp. And all the founders were watching the YouTube video and they're like freaking out. But it's like, if it was just one of the founders, it would have been lame. It's like, oh, this girl's gonna. So that's something even I think about, because my podcast, I get to share it with you. And I've been doing a good job at balancing like so much work by myself. But I want to hire someone, yes, because I need help with the work, but also just so that we can share the moment, so that, oh, if we get an interview with Drake or whatever, it's not just me. It's like, oh, I get to share this moment with this person who's helping me build it. A lot of my favorite podcasters, they have a team and they celebrate. I love George Janko, and he always has his team with him, and I'm like, wow, that's so cool. Getting to travel together, do everything, share the experiences.
That's definitely a dream for sure, is building something cool with somebody, sharing your wins for sure, 100%.
No! We'll have to wrap this up in 10 minutes. Start a timer for 10 minutes. To wrap this up in 10 minutes, that'll be 1:15. Is that show with you?
That's good, yeah.
Dude, it's getting good. What was I going to say? Oh, I was going to say, it's also really interesting. Only our parents' generation, not that long ago, did they not have phones. Like, phones were like, kind of came out when we were like babies. And everything, if you wanted a job, if you wanted a girlfriend, if you wanted to know where to go somewhere, you had to talk to strangers. It was just, you didn't get a choice. Like, introverts, you talk to strangers, you get your information, you go on. If you're extrovert, you talk to strangers, you get your information, you keep talking.
Keep going, yeah.
But that still is so valuable here. Sometimes when I'm going somewhere and I'm walking on a campus and I know the general direction where I'm going, sometimes I'll start a conversation with someone to ask them, just so I can get further detail, just to like push myself of like, I could walk there and guess or look it up on my phone, but it'd be more fun to ask someone.
It is, yeah. I agree.
So that I always think about that. Also, have you heard about the Red Bull thing? Are you familiar with the Red Bull thing? Okay, so Red Bull's doing this challenge where they fly teams of 3 people from 60 countries around the world, and you fly to one of the starting cities they assign you in Europe, and they take away your phone and your wallet, and they give you a Red Bull phone, which I don't know what that means, and they give you like a certain amount of Red Bull, and you have to try crossing Europe using Red Bull as currency, talking to strangers. And thousands of people applied, and my team, me, Serafina, Serafina and Lucas just got picked to go. So
Are you serious?
We're literally gonna go to Europe, and
bro, I wish I knew about this. I would have applied.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I wouldn't have told you, but it already happened.
That's crazy.
But it just, I wouldn't even like know about things like that or do things like that if it wasn't for literally talking to strangers.
Yeah, I want to get into that real quick. We're getting to a way to wrap things up.
Yeah.
So my opinion on tech and these phones and how it's almost negated our ability to socialize. I think it's one of the worst things about our phones. I think our phones should be used as tools.
Yeah.
It should be a means to an end for your own goals. They shouldn't be something that are like social pacifiers or not so digital pacifiers that like supplement your need for connection through technology.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I want to work on, which is this startup idea that I have, is using technology specifically to help facilitate talking to strangers.
Wow.
Be that in a different context. It can be with friends. It can be in a dating capacity. That's I think going to be the focus first, is because I believe in meeting someone organically, personally. I think a lot of people, there's a market for that. But I think tech has taken away from our ability to socialize with others, and it's become accepted. And some people are like, that's okay. Or if you're not comfortable talking to, or like, it comes in my classes. In some of my classes, some of the teachers are okay with you not participating in like an activity if you don't feel comfortable, if you're like a little anxious that day. It's like, it's become acceptable, where I don't think you should treat it as something that's acceptable. You should strive for more, you know? But that's something that I'm working on, is specifically talking to strangers and using technology to facilitate it instead of using technology to supplement it.
Do you have any specific idea that you can share here, or is it...
Yeah, I can share it. I'm going to start building in public within like a month or so.
Yeah.
Actually, once I graduate, I'll take a month off, and then after that, I'll start building in public. I'll be doing daily updates on probably short form. But it's like this. Before you went to creator camp, or before you met your first creator friend, you were alone grinding by yourself. You didn't have anybody else who understood you and your motivation for building a YouTube channel or anything. And you had to seek that. You had to seek that community. But imagine you could just live your daily life, and without talking to people, you could just be notified of, hey, you just passed by somebody in the grocery store, and oh, by the way, they're also an aspiring content creator, and they do a podcast too. They've talked to this person.
Oh, wow.
So it'd just be a facilitator. So instead of having, it's like the camera.
This is a really interesting idea.
It's like a digital camera. So when I was in Austin, I hung out with some guys, and we all had our cameras, and we had this guy come up to us and struck a conversation up because we had cameras. Right? That's like the facilitator. But imagine if you could just have something built into your phone, built into your smart glasses, built into your smartwatch, whatever's coming, which is wearable technology and incorporating with AI. Imagine if you could always just have something on that's always aware of people who are also signed up for this app, this service, and it can remind you or show you or let you know when somebody's around you who you would probably have a great conversation with. So the thing that you could talk about for hours, imagine if you could pass by somebody and then it would notify you that you just passed by somebody who could also talk about the same thing for hours, and there's a new friend.
So let me try repeating your idea back to you.
Yeah.
So essentially, it would be some sort of app that would integrate with wearable technology, or maybe not an app, but it would use geolocation. So you would maybe put your interest or what you're pursuing or what you like, and it would use geolocation so that if you got near someone who had, like, I call it a relationship pillar. So if I'm into content creation, you're into content creation, that's a relationship builder we can build on. So you would insert your relationship pillars into this app, and if you walk by someone in a certain geolocation and they had a similar relationship pillar, it would notify you.
Both of you.
Bro, I've heard ideas for people. A lot of people want to help with connection right now because it's such a big struggle.
Loneliness epidemic.
And actually, part of the reason my podcast is about relationships is because I asked myself, what is something that's not getting better with AI? Loneliness is going up, depression, mental health. So I try to be in this space as well as you. I think it's a great space to be in because it doesn't look like it's getting solved by AI right now.
You know what's going to come with AI?
What?
It's going to be more supplementation.
Yeah.
You have a loneliness epidemic with specifically younger men who are receding to video games, prawn. I don't know if I can say it on the podcast.
Yeah.
And just technology and you're going to have even more of that when you can just pay a $5 subscription. You can have an AI girlfriend. That already happens.
It's already being made.
And it's a massive market. So much money can be made off of it. But there's not going to be, I haven't found anything that's going to facilitate the in-person connection. Yeah.
I have a whole theory as to why AI can't recreate love, but I mean, just to explain it really simply, if I said I'm going to force this girl to love me, and I did whatever, I had full reign. Like I could lock her in my house, I could text her every day, write her letters. Would she love me? Saying no, she wouldn't love you. First of all, that's a crime. But second of all, she wouldn't love you. And we say, okay, well, why wouldn't she love you? Because love has to be a choice. So she can't love me if she doesn't have free will, and AI doesn't have free will, so therefore it can't show you love. That's that explanation.
Yeah.
But
Not yet.
I've heard people have ideas similar to you, but it's like it's almost like an in-person Reddit. So you join a forum for I like chess, and then then the forum will kind of guide you to like meeting spots. But many people have tried formats of that, and it hasn't worked. But this geolocation,
it's passive. And you have to think about it. You put it on if you want to be pinged if you're nearby somebody, or think about it. The initial spark was not this idea; it was the dating idea. So the main problem in the dating marketplace right now is if you don't like dating apps, well, then your alternative is bars and clubs, right?
Yeah.
That's what most people think of.
Yeah, you're
not going to find your like wife or husband at bar and club. So what do? Okay, you look lost. It was a meme on TikTok. I'm going to look lost in Barnes and Noble, and hopefully a guy approaches me.
Yeah.
So then, but girls don't want to approach guys, and guys are afraid to approach girls because they don't want to be filmed on TikTok, like the other gym TikTok trend. They don't want to come across as creepy. Plus, social rejection is scary when you're talking to women, you know. So you literally need you need to go back in time and have like a handkerchief drop. So what if you could just have a virtual handkerchief drop? What if you press it on and you're sitting in the coffee shop, and
this is a good idea, bro. I gotta give it to you.
You're sitting in the coffee shop, right?
Yeah.
You're a guy and you're just doing your whatever work, and you just get a notification, and it's your AI dating assistant, and he's like, hey Jack, there was a girl who just walked in the coffee shop. She's single. Oh, by the way, she also likes a lot of the same books as you. Yeah. You might be able to talk about that. So you have something to talk about, and you know that she's single and looking for something, and at the same time she gets a similar notification. Yeah. And then boom, you have.
And you also know because hers is open that she's probably open to being talked to.
Exactly. Wow. So it solves the approach anxiety factor. Wow. And it also solves depending on the women, some women who are really conventionally attractive that I've talked to, they get approached all the time. But from most people that I've seen, even women who I would consider very attractive, they they want to meet someone organically, but they never meet somebody. No one ever approaches them in person. It's like once a month, once every 2 months.
Or it's only at bars or parties.
And they don't want that.
And they don't want.
So it solves that too.
Yeah. Wow, dude, that's a really good idea. We'll stop this in a couple minutes. Sorry. No. I always tell people, I always like to explain an idea back to someone.
That's a really good practice.
If you can't explain the idea to me, then how are you going to get people on the internet to rally behind it? But that was so well elaborated and explained. I see the vision. Like right now, I can see the vision. I mean, there's going to be a struggle for sure to get a good enough users on in the beginning. You'll probably have to launch it by city or by campus.
Yeah, it's a two-sided market launch. It's going to be very difficult.
But I believe in that idea. That is an absolutely incredible idea. Like I totally see it. Was there one more thing I wanted to say about it? I can't think, but dude, that is a really good idea.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to work on it. I am going to pre-order these smart glasses that have the ability to develop for them. Develop to the glasses, and I want to get a baseline functionality version of it going sometime. Hopefully by the end of the summer, I'll have something to show for it.
Wow, dude. I hope that I can be one of the first users.
Yeah, we'll see what it looks like.
We'll see.
Yeah.
What was the trend? You were talking about TikTok trends.
TikTok trends that reinforce people not wanting to talk to
Oh yeah.
Guys not wanting to talk to girls.
That's like that's a whole thing. Now people are worried they're gonna get they're already scared to talk to their crush, and now they're worried they're going to get caught on camera and publicly shamed.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is not good, but...
Yeah. Sometimes even the ones I've seen, it's like... I think almost all of them have been just regular interactions. Like, it's just a genuine, hey, I think you're pretty...
I remembered what I want to say. Yeah. This is the last thing I kind of want to just put a wrap on all we've been talking about. Because I would say this episode is about talking to strangers. whenever you think about talking to a stranger and you want to talk to a stranger and you can't bring yourself to do it, or you're embarrassed or you're shy or you think it's going to go wrong, ask yourself, would you want a stranger to come up and talk to you? Because I do this, and almost every time I'm like, I would love if that beautiful girl walked up and talked to me. So why wouldn't she love if you went up and talked to her? Or I would love if this entrepreneur guy came up and started a conversation with me. So why won't you go and start a conversation? Chances are you never know 100% how someone will react or how it will go, but chances are you are the best indicator. So if you'd want it to happen to you, they probably want it to happen to them. Treat others the way you wanted to be treated. It's literally the golden rule.
Yep. I agree 100%. And I found, as someone who's talked to in person, virtually, interviewed like thousands of strangers, and just cold approached with a camera, without a camera, if you approach with good intentions and just being genuine and kind, I've had like 1 or 2 interactions that were negative.
Yeah.
And the only reason was because they thought I was interviewing them for like out-of-pocket questions. That's the only reason. Out of all of them, if you approach it from a good space, it's always trying to be as open, as exciting as possible, as positive as possible.
So
it's not going to go bad.
Last question.
Yeah.
Quick. When you die, what do you want people to say about you? Not really a good, quick question, but
Probably that he cared about others.
Yeah.
Thought about others. I hope I die later on, after I have kids. But I hope I hope my children can say I was a good father, and I hope my wife can say he was one hell of a man.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. Where can the people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at RealJackFilms. Films is spelled with a Z.
Yeah.
And my link in bio tools and my Instagram, so you can find everything else from me.
It's all linked in the description below as well. Dude, thank you so much for coming on. I know you gotta get out. Thank you for traveling, coming here. Great conversation, brother.
Conversation indeed.
Let's see. We went